What happens when free market capitalism isn't all that free? Big government intervention in the economy makes everyone poorer, except the government. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Capitalism gets blamed for a lot of things these days. Climate change, slavery, pumpkin spice lattes. But when the economy is put under greater control by the state, i.e. socialism, things don't work out so well. And you still wind up with pumpkin spice lattes. Who would have thought the people behind the DMV might not be competent? Look no further than America's neighbor to the north, Canada. According to Canada's former chief economic analyst, Philip Cross, Trudeau is killing Canada's economic growth. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, love him, hate him, just don't leave him alone with black makeup. Or the economy, for that matter. And it's not just based on GDP. Canada is a member of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. It's a 38-nation intergovernmental organization that determines international economic policies. Just a year ago, Canada's Department of Finance reported that Canada's annual growth in real GDP per capita would lag behind all of the OECD countries from 2020 all the way to 2060. Ouch! Zooming in on this year, the cracks are starting to show. Unemployment rose in June. Inflation is a bit wobbly. And rent is soaring. In addition, the Institute for Research Public Policy said Canada's productivity and living standards have been on a decline. And some say Trudeau's policies are to blame. A big one is Trudeau's climate agenda. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. Now, since climate change threatens to kill us all, it makes sense to give the government more power over the economy, right? Let's see how that's going in Canada. Despite sitting on one of the world's largest sources of oil and gas, Trudeau wants to reduce reliance on them in the name of climate action. The Trudeau government wants a cap on oil and gas emissions across all sectors. The goal is to cut emissions 40 to 45% from 2005 levels by 2030. Now, Trudeau has even admitted that won't do anything to fight climate change. That's because, according to Canada's government, Canada's own emissions are not large enough to materially impact climate change. But that's not entirely true. These policies do accomplish something. The Montreal Economic Institute predicts it will cost the Canadian economy almost $45 billion a year. Then there are the taxes. Canada has not one, but two carbon taxes. According to the Canadian government's own budget watchdog, the first tax, the federal fuel charge, will mean Canadians will have to pay $429 million this year, rising to $924 million in 2030. And the second tax, the clean fuel regulations, will increase the price of gasoline by up to 17 cents per liter and decrease real GDP in Canada by up to $9 billion in 2030. But wait, there's more. RBC Economics predicts Canada's goal of achieving net zero by 2050 will cost $2 trillion. That's the climate policies. But what happens when the government gets involved in wealth redistribution? Well, we know how that worked out in the Soviet Union and Communist China, but Canada does give us an example much closer to home. Because it's time for the ultra-wealthy to pay their fair share. And in Canada, that means taking about a third of people's money if they make over $200,000 a year. Yes, those ultra-wealthy small business owners making above $200,000. Even though America is known as the crazy gun country, Canada proves they're just as capable of shooting themselves in the foot. So what is the government doing with all this tax revenue? Investing too much in government debt and housing, and not enough in business investment. From 2015 to 2019, the decline in business investment was widespread throughout the economy, and a majority of industries in Canada reduced investments in machinery, equipment, and intellectual property products during that period. It seems like the only businesses Trudeau invests in are volumizing shampoos and conditioners. According to the Institute for Research and Public Policy, Canadian businesses are so reluctant to invest and innovate, they aren't being competitive enough with each other, much less the rest of the world. That's why in Financial Times' 2019 Top 100 Global Companies, only 3 were Canadian, compared to 47 American. Now, some will argue things are fine. According to Bloomberg editor Matthew Winkler, Trudeau diversified Canada's economy like no one before. But a diversified economy is not necessarily a growing economy. Governments often assume that the more they tax, the more income they'll get. But often what happens is the wealthiest businesses and people just move their wealth elsewhere and the tax burden lands on the middle class. But you might be asking yourself, what about Scandinavian countries? They rank among the most competitive countries in the world, with companies like Nokia and Spotify. And yet, taxes in those countries are double that of the US's. What's keeping Scandinavian countries operating with high taxes, while high taxes in Canada seem to be discouraging innovation? Well, like the US, Scandinavian countries don't rely on corporate income taxes, which are levied on business profits. They raise a huge chunk of their tax revenue from income taxes, social security contributions, and value-added taxes, or VATs. VATs are similar to sales taxes. They're levied at each stage of the supply chain, such as the manufacture, distribution, and sale of an item. In short, while taxes on businesses are low, Scandinavian countries make it up with high taxes on individuals to fuel their social services. They also aren't so idealistic as to forgo oil and gas to keep their economies going. So what do you think about government involvement in the economy? Leave your comments below. And remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. If you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, all it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on our crowdfunding website, Patreon. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered for more. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.